Simon's playing green-red aggro. This will be a fast one, so if you're interested in a backup match at home, I have a feeling we'll get to that.
So some really important cards for Simon in this matchup are his various shock effects. He has Magma Jets, he has Lightning Strikes, Searing Bloods, Wild Slashes, and the green-red aggro deck does come out of the gates with some pretty low-toughness creatures. Even when you start getting to 3 mana, you're looking at still things like Boon Satyr, Goblin Rabblemaster, so the Dragon Claw. So the shock effects are very important for Simon in this matchup.
Fire Drinker Satyr into the red zone. Just a passing of the turn, 2 mana at the ready. When you have a player who opts not to pump, you have to think a little bit.
Some heaters coming.
Yeah. Walker's just going to pass the turn. Here's some Magma Jet that's going to go upstairs, lock Christie to scry. Walker already down to 16. Take a look at the top 2 cards.
So Christie's list here playing only 19 mountains. It does go all the way up to 3 mana game 1. 2 copies of Goblin Rabblemaster in the main deck, alongside 2 copies of Hordeling Outburst. But a pretty low-end build. Also playing with the new Mardu Scout, which is a nice addition for mono red aggro lists.
Yeah. Christie will take a draw. Gets him out. In for 2. There's a Lightning Strike, so Christie will have to take 3. Mountain there. Just a passing of the turn. So he had a lot of burn spells in hand, that's for sure. We'll see how Avery wants to play around this stuff. There's a forest to start. Does have a copy of Air of the Wilds in hand.
Which he elected not to play on turn 2, sensing that there was a removal spell on Simon's side there, which he correctly sniffed out.
Yeah, not playing anything this turn either, so upstairs goes the Lightning Strike. Walker down to 13. Christie will take a draw. Picked up a copy of Stoke the Flames. All you can do is pass the turn back. Here's a Boon Satyr. That's a Searing Blood. Good target for that. Walker down to 10.
Yeah, Searing Blood is very, very good against these green-red aggro lists. As I mentioned before, a lot of their 3-mana plays still get killed. So it's a great tempo play and deals a ton of damage.
Rabblemaster was the draw. But now's a good time to get Shaman of the Great Hunt into play. In for 4, potentially, we could see Wild Slash or Magma Spray here.
4 copies in Simon's deck, but Avery is at 10. So even with Wild Slash in hand, depending on the rest of the contents of Simon's hand, it's not clear he would want to use a Wild Slash. If the rest of his hand is, say, Stoke the Flames, you might say, okay, I'll try to burn you out from here.
Yep. Christie will draw. Copy of Goblin Rabblemaster.
Great time to draw that with the shields down.
Yep.
You can tell there's some apprehension on Simon's side of the table here because he doesn't want to get hit by the Shaman yet again next turn and then have it get out of Lightning Strike range. This is a really tough spot for Simon to get into because, you know, is he trying to burn out or is he still trying to control the board? He's got to pick a direction.
I think he's made his choice. He will Lightning Strike the Shaman and pass the turn back. 3 mana, that's a Rabblemaster. Goblin token gonna come in. And into the red zone. Christie will go down to 12. Time to take a draw step. Mountain's what he's found. Now, of course, the big question here always when playing a mono aggro deck is when do you shift gears and kill the creatures as opposed to just trying to kill the player?
Exactly, and I think that Simon has tried to split the difference this game in a way that I'm not a huge fan of. I think that he probably should have just ignored the Shaman of the Great Hunt at least for one more turn because his hand's all burn spells. So your opponent, your green-red aggro opponent, their deck's way more powerful than yours. Once you start getting to 4 or 5 mana, they're going to be doing much more powerful stuff. So I think you have to cross your fingers, hope they can't burn you out, and hope to leverage your Stokes and Lightning Strikes to finish out the game.
So Dragon Claw was the draw for Avery Walker this turn. Does have a copy of Creator's Claws at the ready if he wants to clear that Rabblemaster out of the way. Gonna tap 4 mana, and there is Creator's Claws. So gonna get that Rabblemaster out of the way, trigger, get a Goblin token. Here's a whole bunch of damage. It'll be 6 of it. All of a sudden, Christie's facing lethal next turn. He's already down to 6. Christie will draw a card. It's a copy of Lightning Strike. And had he perhaps ignored that Shaman of the Great Hunt, he may have been able to burn out Avery Walker.
It's a tough game because, you know, letting your opponent just have an uncontested Shaman of the Great Hunt, that comes with some dangers too. Simon still might lose the game. But you see Avery's resources left over here. He's still got 2 copies of Heir of the Wilds. He's got cards left over here.
There's SCGHOU Dragonclaw. Looks like might be a little complication on when the spells were played, but here's an attack. So everything is cleared up as Christie goes down to 4. There's another mountain. That'll come in. 2 Stoke the Flames. Simon wants to make sure he knows exactly what this does. Pass the turn back. Walker will take a draw. Temple of Abandon very quickly comes into play. Take a look at the top card. It becomes the bottom. And so the Flames will take care of the Dragonclaw. Christie goes down to 2. There's a Chandra. That's going upstairs. Put him down to 1. Now he's coming from 2 angles, and that's a little too hard to come back from.
He's got to get the tokens on the table and the Chandra. That seems impossible.
The draw step is his last one for this game. Avery Walker's going to win game number 1 here over Simon Christie. Green Red Aggro up a game here over Mono Red Aggros. Now we will turn our attention to the sideboard. Predictably, you have the Mono Red Aggro deck list in hand, so I'll let you start with those 15.
2 copies of Arc Lightning, 3 copies of Prophetic Flame Speaker, 2 copies of Peak Eruption, a Searing Blood, a Scour in the Sands, 1 copy of Harnessed by Force, 3 Eidolon of the Great Revel, 1 copy of a Mountain, one would assume coming in when some of the more expensive spells come in. So I definitely like bringing in the additional Searing Blood effect. Avery's deck is very susceptible with Sova Dragonclaw, Goblin Browmaster, Boon Satyr, and so forth. So more of that's very good. I think it's reasonable bringing in the extra copies of Arc Lightning, though Avery's deck is not terribly susceptible to that. I like bringing in the 1 Harnessed by Force, as the game's kind of a swingy damage race. There's cards like Stormbreath Dragon in Avery's list, which are very nice to take. I would not go to Eidolon on the Great Revel because Avery is also capable of damage racing. Even though Simon's the more aggressive deck of the 2, Avery's deck is capable of aggression too, so I don't like bringing in the Eidolon.
Other side of things here for Walker. He does have 2 copies of Zen and goes to the Reveler, 3 copies of Faded Conflagration, 2 Back to Nature, 2 Arc Lightnings, 3 Magma Sprays, and then 3 copies of Whisperwood Elemental. What do we like here?
The red removal. The 2 Arc Lightnings and the 3 Magma Sprays will do a lot to keep Avery's head above water and allow him to get his more power plays like Chandra, like Stormbreath Dragon. I could see Xenagos being more powerful than some of his other 4-mana plays, though potentially not.
Okay. Well, those are the options there for both players, and game number 2 will be underway here in what will be a pretty quick one. So again, expect a backup match for you guys in just a little bit. Though we will talk about Season 4 and what's on the schedule there. We're going to kick it off in Cincinnati with a Modern Open Series.
Cincinnati, and then we go to Worcester for a Standard Open, Milwaukee, which will also be Standard, then Indianapolis, October 3rd and 4th. Of course, one of our favorite cities to go to. A great convention city, and attendance is always great. Standard Open in Atlanta, the 10th and 11th. We take a week off and then go to St. Louis for a Legacy Open. Modern in Dallas, another Standard Open in Philadelphia, November 7th and 8th. A limited Grand Prix in Atlanta, November 13th through 15th. We take a week off. Legacy Open in New Jersey, a Standard Open in Denver, which we have not gone to in a very long time. Excited about that event. Our Season 4 Invitational in Seattle with a Standard Open Series and Standard and Modern as the invitational formats, December 11th through 13th, with me, you, and Matthias in the booth. And then, of course, the Players' Championship to close out the year, Roanoke, Virginia, December 19th and 20th.
The big one. That one's going to be, I mean, it's all going to be fun. Who are we kidding? But covering that tournament last year, it was one of the most memorable experiences I've ever had. It was just a lot of fun to watch, a lot of fun to cover. It was just an enjoyable experience. And as we all know, Brad Nelson, the defending champion, he's the first one who's punched his ticket there. And we are going to work our way through the year and figure out who the other 15 are going to be.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun to figure out. This tournament has a lot to do with it now with Jim Davis not in the second day of competition. Joe Lissette with a great opportunity to close some ground. He did pick up a loss to start off day 2 and is probably looking at a 5-0 to make the top 8 now.
We'll definitely keep our eyes on Joe's performance this weekend, but we turn our attention back to this match between Avery Walker and Simon Christie. Green Red Aggro and Mono Red Aggro, 2 decks that are pretty well represented here in day number 2. Green Red Aggro, 8 copies of that in the day number 2. And as far as Mono Red is concerned, 6 of those. So a decent amount among those 95 players.
A good representation.
This format showing that you can maybe be a little more aggressive than I think people think. You've also got Red White Aggro at 15 copies, and then Obzon Aggro at 10 copies. So this format, I think, is a lot faster than people give it credit for.
For me, the big tilt is how good is Searing Blood? That, to me, is the most powerful card available to Mono Red Aggro decks in Standard. if Searing Blood is good, if it's a card you can reasonably play 3 or 4 copies of in your main deck, I think the deck's legitimate. If not, I don't think the deck has the raw power to compete. To me, that's the big swing card.
Well, there's a Searing Blood in hand right now. It was good last game. We'll see how it is this game. As Christie's going to start off with a Mountain and a Monastery Swiftspear. So Walker is immediately down to 19. We saw Simon get off to a fast start the last game. We'll see if he can capitalize on it.
Simon Christie also playing with 1 copy of Goblin Heel Cutter, another nice addition.
Wooded Foothills and a passing of the turn. We'll go back Christie's way. And Heel Cutter's the draw.
All right, right on time.
An attack here for 1. And just a boring old passing of the turn. Walker going to sacrifice his Wooded Foothills, go down to 17. There is a mountain.
And we'll see if Avery cooperates this turn, playing something that Simon can hit with a Searing Blood.
Temple of Bannon looks like it may be the land for this turn. Though Forest is also an option. We could just see a turn of Forest, Heir of the Wilds, which Simon would love.
He would be thrilled with that sequence.
There's a Temple. I'm sure he's okay with this too.
Yes.
Simon will draw a mountain. He's got some options here on what he can do. One of them is dash the Heel Cutter, and that's what looks like it's going to take place. So this is going to attack for 4. That's timely removal spell there. Magma Spray getting the job done.
Very nice tempo swing there, though not necessarily worse for Simon to keep the Swiftspear. It's a pretty big investment every turn in that Heel Cutter.
Yeah. Walker has tried his best to play around Searing Blood. We saw it in the first game. We see it here, too. Could have just easily slammed down Heir of the Wild and just hope for the best, but he chose not to do that.
He's definitely conscious of it. It's a huge swing. It's so much damage. There's also 1 Scryland left in his hand, too, so he's got to figure out how does that fit into my curve here.
Rabblemaster, Goblin Token in for 1.
First of all,
Christie's down to 19.
145 players, 145.
Christie will draw.
We're going to have 8
Copy of Hordling Outburst.
before we cut the top 8. Again, 8
Now things are a little bit interesting because do you want a Hordling Outburst this turn, or would you prefer to just Searing Blood, get that stupid Rabblemaster off the table and keep coming on in? Looks like he's going to go the second route.
I think that I would actually prefer the Hordling Outburst that turn. You get a prowess trigger so the Rabblemaster can't block. The Rabblemaster compels the tokens on Avery's side to attack, and then you get to untap and Searing Blood the Rabblemaster and attack with a bunch of stuff. I understand the instinct, just get the Rabblemaster off the table, but I think in that spot Simon can be a little bit riskier and just cast Hordling Outburst.
Temple of Abandon comes in, little scry action there. Here's an Heir of the Wilds, and just a passing of the turn. Lightning Strike, going to get that creature off the table.
Number 2, you have 50 minutes. You may begin.
Christie will draw. It's a mountain. There's a Hordling Outburst. Now to trigger Prowess. Don't love the timing of the Lightning Strike. Feels like he misses out on a point of damage there.
Well, he might miss out on a point of damage. It's possible he draws something to cast this turn,
Sure.
and then he's out the spell he could cast. I think I actually like Simon's play of Lightning Striking here because it feels like Avery is likely to chump block with the token this turn just from the 1 Prowess trigger. Avery didn't, but it's almost juicy enough for him to chump block there that I think I prefer Lightning Striking when Simon did.
Ashcloud Phoenix. Heck of a blocker. Pass the turn back over to Christie. Christie will draw. Picks up another mountain. Doesn't have a ton of lands in his deck, but he's drawn quite a few here.
Yeah, he's got 19 and 1 in the sideboard for, I assume, when he brings in some of his 3-mana spells like Prophetic Flame Speaker, Arc Lightning, Harnessed by Force, Peak Eruption, which he may or may not have brought in. I'm not a big fan of it. In this matchup, I'd probably only bring in Peak Eruption against Chain of the Rock decks, but it's possible he brought it in here.
The Ashcroft Phoenix has really made this difficult. No really good attacks here for Christie.
I mean, an Alpha Strike is not atrocious here. And the problem is that it's only going to get worse for Simon from this spot. Avery's going to keep flooding the board with blockers. So even though it is not great for Simon that the Phoenix morphs and gets to block again, I think he has to choose this spot to get into damage because he might not get another opportunity.
He has put himself in a situation to maybe just draw running burn spells now.
Yeah, the 2 points of damage here is very valuable. You know, it means that something like Stoke the Flames plus Lightning Strike or Searing Blood means that it's lethal. And Simon's at 19. Avery has to play defense for a while, so you have a lot of draw steps.
Temple of Mana will come in. Scry will put the top card to the bottom. So there's land number 5. You can see Walker's hand. Shaman of the Great Hunt. Another Ash Cloud Phoenix. Air of the Wilds as well. But if you're Walker, now it's about trying to get this game closed out.
Yeah.
This is a good way to start. There's a Shaman of the Great Hunt. Now, how aggressive will he get? Pretty aggressive.
It's possible he wants to get more aggressive in that spot. If he attacks with the token as well, on the way back, Simon knocks him down to 5 on board, which means that he still needs 2 burn spells to kill him. It means that both of his creatures are out of Searing Blood range, and it means you're pretty close to ending the game. So that's a pretty aggressive play from Avery, but I actually might prefer something even more aggressive than that, getting in with the morph as well.
Frenzied Goblin comes down. Been a long time since we've seen that one. I think a card that most people expected to have Mono Red, to kind of help Mono Red get more on the map.
It definitely does help. Against Corsair, Crewfix, Siege Rhino decks, it's a big help, but it doesn't tip the scales that much. I have a history with this card. I'm a huge fan, but it's not going to make or break this deck. It's just a nice addition.
Shaman of the Great Hunt coming on in again, this time for 5, so now it's going to tick up, become a 6-power creature. There's a use of a Dragon Claw. This is an Air of the Wilds, and now we're gumming up the board in such a fashion that Christie's probably going to do some chump blocking and peel some burn spells.
Not only that, but it's actually worse than that because the Yusova can take the Frenzy Goblin, and then the Frenzy Goblin can make something unable to block, so Simon actually has to hold back everything on defense if he wants to block with anything.
Well, Wild Slash was a timely draw.
Yes.
Might have to use that to kill the Yusova.
Well, it's 4 power, and the activated power matters a lot right now. So if it's going anywhere, it has to go there.
There's a mountain.
I guess Simon does have the option of just passing, allowing Avery to move to combat and hoping that Avery messes up. The problem is that right now the Yusova's activated power matters a lot, so his hand's almost forced to just do something right now.
Yeah. You're also playing against a green deck too, so you have this concern, I think, always when playing against a green deck about pump spells.
For sure.
Maybe I have this in my head just because of Aaron Barrich and his love for Gather Courage, but it's something that I think you always have to think about when you're playing against green. The likelihood is kind of low, but, you know, some players do run cards like Become Immense, and, you know, we saw Boonsader earlier.
Yep.
So it's certainly not out of the question. The draw, however, was just a land. Walker with Ash Cloud Phoenix, and I believe Elvish Mystic in hand. Now kind of surveying the board on exactly how he wants to go about doing things. Can't forget that morph in play is an Ash Cloud Phoenix and does have 6 mana to unmorph it if you'd like to go that direction.
Well, on the board, what Avery has is lethal because he can take the Frenzy Goblin, make the Frenzy Goblin make a token unable to block, and then even if Simon chump blocks the Shaman, lethal is coming across.
Sure.
So Simon's hand is forced here.
The Wild Slash does take care of the use of a Dragon Claw. So not going to allow him to take anything there. But again, now we have to see how Walker wants to attack, because Walker's goal here is to get this game over with as fast as he possibly can, while making it so that he doesn't die as some sort of wonky attack. Here comes the Shaman and the Morph. Goblin token is going to block here. Looks like 2 damage is going to come across. I'll put a counter on that. There's Ash Cloud Phoenix. Here's Elvis Mystic. Walker's hand is empty. Christie's going to need a really good one. It was a spell, though we didn't get a great look.
Perhaps another Frenzied Goblin, I think. Avery's been very cautious here. Make sure that nothing weird happens. Maybe leave back a spare blocker, even though, in some spots it looks like he's pretty safe. Just, he's got a commanding position on the board, doesn't want to get punked out.
I think it's been a really nice balance of picking his spots appropriately.
Yeah.
When to get aggressive, when to kind of hold back and measure a little bit, and, how he can close this game out accordingly to make sure that he doesn't die to anything kind of random, which is a pretty tough skill when you're playing against mono red.
For sure.
Sometimes you get too aggressive. Sometimes you can get way too cautious and give him too many draw steps. It's a copy of Arc Lightning. We got one there and two on Air of the Wilds. So Ash Cloud Phoenix is going to turn down. That'll be morph number 2. Both morphs in play for Walker are Ash Cloud Phoenix. But no good attacks to be had, just a passing of the turn. Walker will draw a copy of Crater's Claws, which might make things really easy. I think it does.
I think so.
He can claws for 7 here. That's going to go upstairs. And that's good enough to get the job done. Avery Walker is going to take care of Simon Christie. 2 games to 0. Green-red aggro downs mono-red aggro. And for Avery, he moves on to 9-2 here in Houston.
Very good start for this deck.